7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. So we're going to do a little round of introduction. Before then, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Margaret Imprim. I'm the Assistant Global Coordinator for the Youth Government Council's Global Alliance, and I am the moderator for this session. And we're going to have some wonderful discussions on how to facilitate community-led initiatives through advocacy and funding. Our panelists and our speakers today are going to be in the areas of projects, coordinators, people who are going to have bankable projecting around, and also understand a lot more about what they're doing and how they collaborate with funders. Since there's something also about funding, we're going to have funders with us here. We're going to tell us what they've been doing, what they expect from us. So I believe that you're going to have a lot of insight on what to do as a project coordinator if you're in any kind of project, and how to access funding and collaborate with funders here. So I want to believe you're all ready for today. If you're ready, let me hear yay. Oh, yeah, it's not strong. Yay. It's not strong. Let me hear yay. I thought I was weak. All right, so just a little round of introduction from everyone very quickly. We just want to know your name and the country you're from, just that. So we can just familiarize ourselves and know the diversity here, and so that when our speakers are speaking, they know the kind of countries they're relating to. Is that okay? Can we have a microphone?
Yeah, we have. Everybody?
Just the name and the country.
Let's start.
Manuela from Italy. Roberta from Italy.
Agostino from Italy.
Marilo from Ethiopia. Leslie from Cameroon.
Grace from Malawi. Brenda from Malawi.
Josh from Zimbabwe.
Jacqueline from Tanzania.
Diana from Kenya.
Edwin from Kenya.
Hamza from Kenya.
Stacy from Kenya.
Shamiso from Zimbabwe.
Masi, Kenya. Sharon, Kenya.
Victor from Kenya.
Caro, Kenya.
Cheroi from Kenya.
Dorcas from Kenya.
Judith, Kenyan.
Paul from Ghana.
Sylvie from Burkina Faso. Samira from Burkina Faso. Karishma from Mauritius.
Mary Wright Tambo from Zambia.
Hi. Hello.
Okay. Ayo from Nigeria.
Julia from Kenya.
Liz from Kenya.
Sharon from Kenya. Linda from Kenya.
Anderson from Kenya.
Mary from Kenya.
Bridget from Kenya.
Olivier from Burundi. Joshua, Kenya.
Naomi from Kenya.
Ashley, Kenya.
Samuel, Kenya.
From Kenya, Ronald.
Sharon from Kenya.
Tiffany from Seychelles.
Eric from Kenya.
Melan from Kenya.
Lucy from Kenya.
Metamei, Kenya. Joshua from Uganda.
Isaac from Uganda.
Kipchumba from Kenya.
Grace from Uganda.
Hello, good morning. Alejandro, originally from Mexico, but I've been the Climate Change Secretariat in Germany.
Mujida from Nigeria.
Akumu from Kenya. Njau, Kenya.
Let's give ourselves a big round of applause for this brief introduction. I'm really happy to know that we have a very large representation from various areas: Kenya, Ghana, Uganda, Seychelles, and every other place in the world. So another round of applause for all of us. Great. So we're just going to go to why we are here. So looking at what we want to achieve at the end of this discussion, we want us to understand some successful community-led climate initiatives through youth-led projects. And we're going to have Green Africa Youth Organization. We're going to have Care About Climate. We're going to have Youth4Cop doing that, telling us most of the things they've been doing. And also, this is to build our youth capacity for climate advocacy and also introduce, I'm sorry, okay. Can I just put this one this way? Great. Thank you. So, and also highlights the role of policy advocacy at the international level. Also shed light on funding mechanisms and resources dedicated to supporting youth-led climate project in Africa. So from this, we're going to have the UNDP, we're going to have AFDP here to also speak more about funding and also to discuss ways to enhance funding opportunities for youth-led climate projects in Africa. Lastly, to facilitate, of course, networking and collaboration amongst us all. So before we just move on to calling our panelists, we're going to have some videos we're going to show some examples of community-led initiatives we have been having in Ghana. So the first one will be coming from Gayo. All right, thank you very much. So that was a video from Green Africa Organization showcasing the Waterfall Adaptation Project. During the panel discussion, I'm sure Kayo's representative will speak more about what this project is all about. I'm going to invite Marie-Laure Mbek Nyemek. I'm hoping I had the name right. Just a little bio profile about Marie. So she has more than 20 years of professional experience working on natural resource management for sustainable development with civil society, local communities, and indigenous peoples and government. Marie-Laure is the SGP Regional Technical Advisor for Africa that covers 40 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and the SGP Land Degradation Program Advisor. She holds a PhD in Natural Resources Management in the areas of agroforestry and tree domestication from the University of Yaoundé. Marie-Laure is going to tell us some things about what is going on in the areas of some small, grants funding and everything. So Marie-Laure is going to have a presentation and then we have a little discussion before our panelists come take the stage. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Marie-Laure.
This is not Marie-Laure.
No, the other one. There's an SGP opportunities. That's fine, yes. Even here, so good. You have it here, so you can even sit if you want. The other one, the SGP, this one, yes. Can you just project it? Do it, if you want, because it's right here. Would you help with that? All right. A round of applause, please. So you can go ahead and we'll do the discussion. Yeah? Good. Nice. Okay.
Good morning. So I'm happy to be here with you to share the GF Small Grants Program lessons learned, best practices in working with youth around the world, but also specifically in Africa. So the Small Grants Program is a program that is implemented in about 134 countries around the world, mostly in the small island development states, but also in the least development countries. So youth are one of the key target group of the Small Grants Program, and the support the Small Grants is providing to youth should be focused and really mainstream to make sure that we are addressing the needs and really what the youth are intending to do. So I would like to share with you quickly some of the areas where we are working with youth. On the project, SGP has been funding since 2015. We have realized that the participation of youth in our project, the track has been increasing. So the trends has been increasing from 2015 to almost 2019, as you can see. The majority of the country programs have within their national steering committee a youth focal point. Because for us, it's important to have within the National Steering Committee, what is the body that approve the grants, somebody who can really address or maybe raise and share the needs of youth. And the Small Grants Program has also supported the participation of youth to several fora like COPs, like GF Assembly, and various other key events. There is a link where you can go on UNDP GF Small Grants site and see what SGP is doing with the youth. So if I go specifically on the reports we made last year, youth are increasingly becoming an important target group, as I've said. So we have reported more than 400 projects completed with youth, either as leaders or just participating to this project. And this represents 42% of the portfolio of SGP around the world. So we have supported directly or indirectly 265 civil society youth-led civil society organizations And on reporting period, we have realized that we have focal points in the steering committees. And based on that, UNDP Small Grants Program recently put in place a climate innovation program to see how we can work with youth. And this program has been piloted in a number of countries, with each country program receiving about $200,000. The innovation program was launched in 2019. The program addresses barriers, education, skills, funding, awareness, but also showcasing the result and sharing the lessons from the youth engagement in the fight against climate change. So the priority themes are green jobs for young generations, skill and competencies to lead climate action locally, nationally, and even globally. So on this pilot initiative in innovation program, we have addressed a number of areas of interest. But most important, I would like to say that the target support is going towards young people to enable them to acquire skills, to restore natural resource, and transition to low carbon pathways. Through these experiences, working with youth-led initiative, it has become increasingly clear that these approaches emphasizing skills development and green jobs for youth is highly impactful. So we have some publications. I'm sure that they will share the link with you. We recently had an experience in Sierra Leone where a youth project with about 500 direct beneficiaries were involved in constructing a youth community center with solar equipment used as a solar charging station for the whole community, and by providing a primary school with equipment such as solar panels, batteries, cables. And I have another experience in Armenia also that I can share about a project to enhance employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for students and young practitioners. The most important thing I would like to draw your attention to is that as a result of this project, there was a new specialization in the schools, and one of the documents developed through this project has been included in the curricula in this country. Next. And there is another publication. The first one was on climate. The second one is on youth. I'm sharing an experience with Mauritius. I'm sure that if Karishma is not far, she's interested to hear something about Mauritius, where we work with youth from vulnerable socioeconomic backgrounds, and they were trained to have really skills in sustainable agriculture and renewable energy. So we have a lot to share, but I think that there are a few examples that I would like, I wanted to share with you, and I'm available for other questions. We recently launched an initiative in Southern Africa in partnership with the African Union Commission and the SADC Green Wall Initiative, where we are working with youth-led civil society organizations to contribute to the implementation of the National Action Plan on the Great Green Wall. And I think that those of you who are part of this region can also take this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Willie. Thank you so much. We have one question for you. And since you spoke a lot about the small grants program, particularly for African countries, I just want to know that given the competitive landscape for climate funding, what advice would you offer to young climate activists here? Skills, the chances.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I would like to say is that in each of the countries, we have a national coordinator, and this national coordinator can share with the youth the templates before the call for proposals are really made so that you can familiarize SG proposal templates, and you can maybe aspiration on how, what are the key important elements that you have to include in your proposal. And something else I would like to add is that youth, I know that you are aware, you are reading, and you would like to know. It's also important for you to share experience and see how, when it's possible, to make sure that taking into consideration really the skills that you have and advantage of what each of the organization or each of the individual can have. And something also that I would like to add, we have in some countries private sector who is also willing to work with civil society organization and youth. And I think that public, private, people, that is youth partnership is also something that you have to strive to go for. That's what I can add. Very much.
Thank you so much. We just had a 2 minutes. You want to give the chance for anyone to ask questions related to this program. Just have other funders come. So people just yes, thank you so much. Name and you're from it. So yeah, your question.
Thank you. My name is Jacqueline from Tanzania. I would like to know which countries your coordinators are. So if a person wants to get the templates so it can be easy, which countries are your organization in? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joshua Zinzombe. I'm from Zimbabwe Farmers Union, but I'm here with SACAO. SACAO represents 16 countries in SADC. My question is that regarding grants, do you have a specific model for marginalized groups, especially those who are in the rural areas? And also, do you have a specific model for the disabled and the illiterate? Thank you.
Yeah. My notes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. For Tanzania, I would like to assure you that we have at least 40 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and is one of these countries. I think that after this session, I can give you the email contact of our national coordinator. He's based in UNDP country office in the capital city. His name is Faustin Ninga. Then I will link you to him. Now, regarding taking into consideration some of the marginalized or the less privileged of us, I would like to share with you that inclusion is one of the important criteria for the small grants program. First of all, we are working with those who are in remote areas where most of the donors will not go. So we are working with indigenous people for some of the countries where they are represented, like in South Africa, like in Namibia. We are working with indigenous people like in Burundi, even here in Kenya, we are working with them. And we are also working with people with disability. And for those who don't have capacities, the support we provide is that we can give a planning grant, allowing them to have an organization with skills and with capacities to help them gather and put together what are their needs, and they will design the project for them. And this project can now be submitted. So they can request for a planning grant. This is a possibility. There is also a possibility for those who don't have writing as one of the main way of communicating. In some of your communities, we can allow people to use these planning grants to submit their proposal through video. But you need to have somebody who have the skills to prepare a proposal using these video recording skills. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause. Thank you so much, Marilo. Thank you. You can have a seat. Thank you so much, Marilo. And a round of applause as she sits, please. I'm hoping that she answered all your questions in the areas of the small grants program. Like I said, this meeting and the one after this one will talk more about funding and how we, the youth in these spaces, can collaborate with them and also have projects that are able to have bankable abilities to gain these funding. So I'm going to call our panelists who are going to come here. Our panelists range from community project coordinators as well as policy advocates, and we're going to discuss more what's going on in the various sections regionally, internationally, and also we're going to have funders speak also about what is going on in this space and how they collaborate with people and how they has to relate with them in the areas of collaborating and project initiatives. So I would really want us to note down every question we have. We would have a space or question and answers so that we can, delve into the matters. And if you have any present question on funding and anything, I'm sure our funders have noted the countries represented here, and they'll be able to give specific answers as to what is, in line with the country. So I'm going to first call our panelists, and they'll come take their seat, and then we start with the discussion. The first person is Mujida Ajibola. I hope I had the name right. Mujida, let's give a hand for her, please. Mujida is the program manager for the National Climate Policy and Advocacy Training, and she's in care about climate. A brief profile about Mujida. Mujida Ajibola is a sustainability and global citizenship educator. She coordinates the course creation team for the International Climate Policy and Advocacy course at Care About Climate, which equips climate advocates with the necessary skills for impactful engagement at the global and national climate change conferences, while prioritizing their welfare at home. In Nigeria, Mujida leads Sustainable Schools NG, an organization committed to integrating sustainability education in Nigeria across formal and non-formal sectors. And a round of applause for Mujida, please. You're welcome, Mujida. Our next person is Agostino in Inguscio. I hope I right. Great. Let's give it up for Agostino, please. Please have a seat, Agostino. A brief profile about him. Agostino Inguscio is the director of UNDP Rome Center for Climate Action and Energy Transition. He was special advisor on international affairs for the Minister of Ecological Transition, and he was the senior expert on climate change for the 2021 G7 G20 Office of the President, CEO of the Council of Ministers of Italy. He previously worked as policy officer at the European Commission, as a lecturer at the University of Cape Town, and as a researcher at Yale University. He holds a doctorate and master's from the University of Oxford. And a round of applause for Agostino, please. You're welcome, Agostino. Our next speaker is Dauda Cham. Where's Dauda? Is Dauda here, please? Okay, let's give it up for him as he comes to sit down, Dauda. Dauda Cham is the partnerships and fundraising contact points for Aim4COP. So a brief profile of Dauda. Dauda Cham is a Gambian climate activist with over 5 years of non-profit conservation experience. He holds a bachelor's degree in biology from the University of the Gambia and currently serves as a deputy executive director of Help Gambia, an environmental NGO. He's one of the 100 selected youth of the COP28 presidency's International Youth Delegates Program, and his co-contact point of Aim4COP Partnerships Working Group. And a round of applause for Dauda, please. You're welcome, Dauda. Our next speaker is Richard Mate from Green Africa Organization. Let's give it up for him as he comes to sit, please. Richard Mate is the climate lead for Green Africa Organization, and he's also the coordinator for the Youth Climate Councils in Ghana. Another round of applause for Richard, please. You're welcome. We have a last person, Winnie. Is Winnie Mutai here? Okay, she's running late, but she'll certainly join us during the discussion so we learn more what's going on in AFDP. But for now, I'm going to have my seat. Let's give a round of applause for all our speakers, please. I beg you a round of applause. If you're excited, you're seeing people who would answer your questions. Let's give a loud round of applause. Great, so I'm going to have my seats now. All right. Hello, gentleman and lady. I love the gender balance, so that's a good thing. All right, we're going to start learning more about what's going on in the climate space with regards to the initiatives, and then we go more to the funding. So this is something for us to showcase what we're doing and how it's reflecting or impacting the communities we work in. And then we will speak more about how we collaborate with the funders and also how we're able to get some projects that are bankable, because we are project coordinators in areas that have projects that have received some funding. There might be people here who want to know how you do it. How do you tell your story? How do you bring out the information so that they're all aware of how you do it? If there's any secret practice, you share your secret practice right here and others can learn from it as well. So we're going to start with Mujida. You have something to show us from Care About Climate. So if you can do that briefly and then move on to the discussion.
Okay, so while that is ready, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mujida again, and I'm really pleased to be here. Yes, I've been introduced earlier. So I'm from Care About Climate, and we are a movement of young people who empower other young people to equitably address the climate crisis by bridging knowledge and the knowledge gap in young people so that they can effectively contribute to climate discussions and climate action. So it is obvious that most of the time young people really care about climate. They want to do something about it because we are the ones that are going to be more affected with climate action in the future. But most of the time, we really do not have those tools that we need. We are not really equipped to take action as we would want to. We are not equipped to take action in ways that would give us the result. And as a result of being tired of being bystanders and also being tokenized, like people, they're not young people, making it look like young people are not serious, they've got nothing to offer, we decided to start building the capacities of young people in terms of climate policies. And when I mean climate policies, from the international stage, your local countries, sub-regional countries as well, you are able to contribute effectively to climate negotiations. And also you're able to review these policies that governments talk about. You know, a lot of times we are tired of attending COP, climate weeks and SVs, and then we see all these decision papers, we don't know what they mean and all of that. So we equip young people with the skills and knowledge to be able to understand this, read this, analyze it, and feed it into policies in their countries. So it's not just, okay, I've read it and I understand it and I'm flowing with it. You have to be able to critique it, look at the strong points, look at the limitations, and help your own or the world at large, yes, help us to develop more ambitious policies, and not just ambitious policies, policies that are going to be backed with action. So we do that through three basic projects. The first is the NDC project. We call it the NDC project. The full name is the Nationally Determined Contributions. That's the NDC Equity Tracker. That is what we do. In this project, we build a database of NDC analysis of different countries. And we now review these NDCs gender perspective, the intergenerational perspective, and also looking at the civil society representation. For example, when we're looking at the gender perspective, we just don't look at where women are mentioned, where children are mentioned. We look at the quality that mentioned in there. So it's not that we don't want women to just make up the numbers. We don't want women and children. Thank you. We don't want women and children to just make up these numbers and just be in those texts as maybe passing words. You know, we want to see how they are actually being involved in climate decision making and also in climate action. And then we've got the International Climate Policy and Advocacy course. The short form is the COP training, where we kind of distill the complex COP structure, the UNFCCC structure, the COP itself, and by extension, the SVs and the regional climate weeks, as well as the major themes that are discussed at these international climate deliberations. We try to break them down into simple language for young people to understand. Instead of the jargons that we have and people don't even understand them, we break them down. And we also empower people on that course with the skills to be able to engage. So aside understanding the technical part of all of these negotiations, how do you fit in? You know, how are you able to come and not just see what's happening around and go? We know these negotiations are usually like a frenzy of activities. How do you understand what to do, what to follow? How are you not just moving from one meeting room to the other and without having anything? How are you able to contribute effectively to these discussions, understand what they are saying, and go back to your own country and take local action? Because if you do not take local action, it's just going to be talking without action, and that's not what we want to see. Also, we've got the CAC clubs. It's short for Climate Education Toolkit and our Community of Practice. If you look at the first two programs that we have, they're basically at the policy level. So we are looking at the NDCs and we are empowering people to be able to contribute effectively to international climate negotiations. How does this translate to local action? So we have CAC clubs, which has people in their different home countries now coming together to talk about how they can make action, galvanize serious action in their countries. And we also have this there's a playbook for them, which is kind of like a workbook that guides them with the soft skills that they need to make this happen. And yeah, we also then have two support teams. I'm going to come back to social media and communications as we delve into the discussion. But then we have the social media and communications team and the admin and fundraising team. These are two support groups that help the other three programs to flourish. And we are an international organization. We work basically remotely, and we have volunteers from over 30 countries across the world, across all regions as well, talking about inclusion. So we hope that with all of this that we are doing, we're able to support young people in sharing their perspective with negotiators, hearing our voice in a constructive manner, and uplift the solutions we are implementing. I must give it to us young people, we do a lot. That is the truth. I am from Nigeria and I know we do a lot, and that happens all around. But how are we able to communicate this to policy makers? How are we able to tell them these are the solutions working in my own context? You know, how are we able to localize all of this? And looking at our NDC project, we have been able to analyze NDCs in about 19 out of the 23 United Nations subregions of the world. And in all of these NDCs, we have seen that the high income and emitter countries, yes, again, they reflect the poorest ambition given their level of relative responsibility. Let's mark the term relative. Talking about common but differentiated responsibilities, we are not seeing that ambition as it should be coming from the high emitting countries. Then a significant number of NDCs do not include language on women in or concrete way. Back to what I said earlier, we're not just looking for the spelling of women or children. We're looking at how effectively they are being engaged and how they are also benefiting from these climate actions. And most of these, yeah, just like women, they don't include language on young people too, just like women and also civil society. So we've been able to talk to countries about recognizing vulnerable communities as key leaders in addressing the climate crisis. You can't do something for a people without getting their perspectives. And we believe in designing solutions with the people who are affected, because that is when you can get the actual things. We all know that sometimes what you feel that there are problems on the surface might not be the actual problem. So we equip people, we tell countries to look at the root causes of the issues. Then we've been also able to talk to countries to create a robust and transparent stakeholder input process. We need to have all partners on the table, right? It's not enough to have just talk to them about, say, we've included women and youth. Who are the youth representatives? Who are the women representatives? Are they actually speaking the minds of their constituencies? So in the near future, we are going to do more in terms of amplifying advocacy efforts and also designing a toolkit for NDC analysis so that other people around the world, even if you are not a core member of our team, you can take this and work with it in your own space. Then analyze additional countries and ultimately engage stakeholders. There's no point analyzing an NDC and it's just there as a document as well. We are recycling the same problem. So we want this to fit into policies in these countries and then have a scorecard for youth inclusion. So I think I would like to stop out there for now.
Thank you so much, Mujida. Thank you so much. And from what you're saying, it gives me the impression and understanding that you work with so many countries, like you said, and you have a lot of partnerships, a lot of coalitions. So I have just one question for you before we let all the other project coordinators speak, and then you come back again. Is that okay? Great. So your question right now is, how can we build effective coalitions and partnerships to advance policy advocacy efforts at the international level? So with what you're saying, lots of things, you've been very successful in doing lots of collaborations. How can we build these effective coalitions? I mean, even towards COP. And how do we build effective partnerships to advance the policy advocacy efforts at the international level?
Okay, so when it comes to building coalitions and partnerships, I think the first thing is to look for the common factor between you, your organization, and the organization you want to work with. There's an intersection. There's this text that says, religious text that says, two cannot work together except they are the same, right? I deserve an applause for that, right? So we need to just find that place where both of our goals meet. No funder is going to fund Care About Climate because, oh, what you're doing is good. It's also has to be a win-win situation for both organizations. So you're funding us because you know what we do is important, but then it is also keen into your own deliverables as well. That means the deliverables of the funders, because they are also getting money from a particular place and they also have to report. So we need to understand that and then find a meeting point. Another thing is that in our project in writing proposals, like the person from SGF said, we need to understand what to amplify. The first thing is inclusion. At Care About Climate, we are very big on inclusion. We are very big on inclusion, and it starts from home. So from our individual teams, from getting volunteers onto our team, we look out for regional inclusion, we look out for gender inclusion, we look out for disabilities and all of this. And it also reflects in our project. For example, the International Climate Policy and Advocacy course. Last year, it was offered only in English. This year, we have scaled it up to 4 other languages. And we hope that by next year, we're able to translate the course into the 6 UN languages and also find a way to ensure that accessibility needs of other people are met. So we try to do this holistically, and that also translates into when we are writing proposals. We ensure that we are looking at how whatever it is we are pitching affects women and children, how it affects the disabled people, how it affects people in the global south, and also people who are on the frontline communities. Aside that, it is also very important to communicate impact. We are very big on communicating impact. Like I said the other time, we are coming back to our social media team. We have a very vibrant social media team. You can check out our Instagram. I give that to them. They follow up with all of our activities all of the time. And when I say you have to have a vibrant social media team or communications team, I am not talking about sugarcoating. I am not talking about packaging. No, we are talking about expressing what we do, not shying away from what we do, not saying, oh, this is small, it cannot make an impact. You never can tell. Those little actions are the things that some people want to see, and that may be why they would fund you. Another thing is corporate governance. A lot of funders look at corporate governance. Sometimes when you apply for a particular fund, they ask you for regulatory documents. They're not just asking to put in their files. They're trying to see your structure. They don't run your organization with you, but with those things, they're trying to see how you run your organization, your finances, if there's any trace of nepotism or something. All of these things are things that you need to put in place if you are looking at getting funding from organizations, and those are the things that we do.
Thank you so much. Let's move to Dauda. So in understanding what Youth4Cap does, I just want you to share with us some of your best practices, what you've done, the impact, particularly projects that has had collaboration with funders, and how you've gone about it and everything, so that people would appreciate what is going on in your region, and as well what you've been able to do successfully by the support of some funders.
Thank you so much. I think my presence in this panel is really important for me, especially for the fact that at InfoCorp, we are about to roll out a program called Entrepreneurship Program for African youth. Because InfoCorp is actually young, because we started the campaign last year. It's a younger campaign, and the idea is to put African youth together and ensure that their participation in global climate conferences or events are really improved. And then last year, we were able to at least send up to 30 members from across the country, across the continent, to participate in regional climate weeks and as well as the COP27. We've, of course, partnered with organizations, but not in the area of projects. But I could share my own experience at my own level. And this includes the COP27 presidency, who actually helped us in funding some of our members. But at my own level, as someone who leads an organization in the Gambia, a success story that I can share is a project that we launched not long ago called Grow for Gambia. Because my organization has been, for the past years, been doing a lot of we realize is funders will not continue to give you free and I'm
which we held the pitch event during the last day of the Africa Youth Climate Assembly, and we gave out about 30,000 US dollars to young people who have innovative ideas.
Cute proposals you want them to look like? Something? I mean, please just tell us.
No, thank you, Margaret. Thank you, all of you, of course, for being here today. And really, I would like to start, if you allow me, Margaret, by really relating for a moment about what Mujitha, Richard, and Dardas just said, also in the context of the Africa Climate Summit. circular economy / urban sustainability, and food and agriculture. And this year we received more than 1,200 applicants, 1,100 applicants, of which almost 700 were from Africa, right? And I think that this really relates to what I'm hearing here today and I've heard in the course of these days. And it makes me very convinced that we're doing the right things. But you asked me, Margaret, about the criteria here. So we're really looking, the first thing that we look at is feasibility, right? So we don't need stories that can transform the whole world. We need impact in the local communities. So we pay high scrutiny to the budget dimension, right? So the grant is up to $20,000. What can actually be done with this $20,000? So we want innovative yet realistic approaches. Then we definitely have a strong point on looking at innovative solutions. This is the instrument that we're using for these is what's called an innovation challenge in the UNDP jargon, but it's just a useful way of funding things that can fail, right? So for instance, it's very different from the fantastic work that Marie-Laure does, where they work, for instance, a lot with social organizations, communities, as we heard. We can work with individuals, right? And of course, it's riskier, right? Because of course, who is the individual and whatnot. So, there is an element of acceptance of failure there, which I'm looking at the donors now, Italy in the first row. So hopefully not too much failure, but there is an element of that. And then we look, and Mujita, you mentioned this, first and foremost to the inclusiveness criteria. So the gender dimension is crucial, indigenous people dimension is crucial, and of course the positive spillover effects on the societies. Of course, most of us here are relatively new to this, so we are learning by doing, and indeed now we are in the design phase for the next phase for the call for solutions. And we are indeed here also to collect these informations, and the next call for solutions will be announced at COP28. And we look to make it bigger, better. All the things that we heard during this week have been very well taken note of. And I'll pause here and then we can talk more later if you want. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Agostino. So just a follow up on that, you mentioned your criteria you're looking at and visibility and local, led initiatives and impact. How can project leaders effectively align their proposals with this criteria? Because someone might have something they want to do, but they may not be successful in getting, this funding because it's not visible enough or something enough. How do you think people can effectively design their proposals so that it can catch your eye?
So here, Margaret, I look at my notes because as everything, of course, is a collaborative enterprise. And indeed, I should say that our Youth for Climate coordinator, Roxani Rochas, stayed behind, leading from behind in Rome, because indeed in October we have the Youth for Climate flagship event in Rome, which requires extraordinary amount of preparation. And so she's like, you go to Nairobi. So I'm here like filling her shoes, but I don't have all her knowledge. So I'll also look at my notes. So indeed the visibility, so we try to reverse this a bit, right? So we are trying to allow visibility not to be a huge factor in being funded, but also we are asking, for instance, to young people to share a short video and 1,000 words, so the application process is actually relatively straightforward and easy, and we kind of want to avoid this dimension where we only finance things that are already very visible, already very tangible, and so forth. How we're doing this? We're also doing this through a network of UN online volunteers, which have been working with the applicants before the application. So this is, of course, is something we heard from colleagues as well, so that they could design the proposal in a way that could be successful. And then another thing that we are enterprising to do is to create connections with other funding opportunities, right? Because we don't want these 1,100 proposals so we have 1,100 proposals this year, 100 have been shortlisted that will come to Rome, and out of these 50, 60, we still have to determine exactly how many will win. But of course, these are very strong proposals, and so we are disseminating them through other funding opportunities, right? And we are looking, we're thinking, for instance, perhaps at COP to organize a side event with the private sector, as we discussed. This would be an important element of this, to match some of the ideas, to give scalability to those, also through private sector partnerships. And indeed, we are really, as UNDP, committed to work across all of our young and finance mobilization portfolio. So for instance, for us, it's very important that this leadership that comes from a specific country is then sort of connected across, right? With, for instance, the small grant programs, but with all the other programs that UNDP is collaborating with countries on, so that we can create a critical mass. So that's a little bit where we are at. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Agostino. Moving to you, Richard. From what you're saying and looking at what AIC sought to do was like an every grantor thing, right? To give people some grants. And it's very much understandable because not everyone can have direct access to UNDP. Some would have access to smaller grants like what Gayo is doing. I just want you to share with us some of the ways you have been having these re-grant initiatives and how you've been sharing opportunity to people in the climate space. How do you train them, build their capacity? How do you give them enough knowledge, enough skills training for them to be masters in quotes in what they are doing, and for them to also have the capacity enough to either directly approach big funders like UNDP or smaller grantors like yourself?
Thank you. Because Gayo is keen on building capacity of young people and supporting them to scale up their initiatives, we also do some needs assessment and also have some capacity building for young people in various areas. So for example, we have, because we re-grant, we organize trainings in how to write grant applications, how to write bankable proposals, so that young people can really understand what donors are looking out for and how they can how they can tell their story in a very nice way that can really attract the needed resources that they look out for. Beyond supporting young people to gain access to funding through our capacity building initiatives on writing good proposals, we also link them up to technical support, people who are experienced in proposal writing, to guide them in their applications. So these are some of the activities that we do to support young people to be able to access financing and also technical support for their initiatives. Another thing also with regards to the Africa Climate Innovation Challenge was that we know that young people have innovative ideas, but a lot of times they are not able to make a business case of their initiative to be able to attract the needed investment that they need to scale up their work. So what we also do, or what we did with the Africa Climate Innovation Challenge, was that after we received the applications and selected the applicants, we took them through an incubation process. We took them through a curriculum, a 6 weeks training to build them up to be able to pitch their event, their innovations, and we prepared them also for the pitch event, which was held on the last day of ICA, and they were able to, pitch very well. There were people from the funders, the development partners were all there, who were very much interested in some of the initiatives that were presented during the pitch event. And I know of a surety that, yes, some of the development partners expressed interest in some of the innovations that the finalists pitched during the event. So these are some of the ways that we try to support young people to be able to harness or take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. Another thing we do is through our Youth Climate Councils initiative, where we've set up Youth Climate Councils in a number of countries, and it's still growing, where we put young people together to in a coordinated front, and then we register them, so we have their database, so we're able to share the various opportunities that Gayo comes into contact with or have access to with them. We guide them also in taking advantage or taking opportunity of these information that we share through our mailing list, through our social media handles to young people. So we try through our Youth Climate Council's initiatives in the different countries to reach out to as many young people in the global south, not only in Africa, to support them and to ensure that they are able to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. Because one of the challenges is that we always say that there are not opportunities, but indeed there are. It's about how you are able to get access to them, through which channels, and also how you are able to meet, as my colleague said, the criteria to be able to access these opportunities. So we ensure that we provide them with that opportunity to gain access and also guide them through how they can maximize these opportunities. Thank you.
Great. I have a follow-up question for you. You talking about you carrying out some needs assessment to understand what's going on. Now, we have lots of people amongst us, and even hopefully those listening online as well, who want to see how they can address the needs of the communities, because every solution must address a need, right? How do you think a youth-led project can effectively engage their local communities to ensure that their initiatives are inclusive and responsive to community needs? So based on what you're doing, I mean, obviously it's attending to some needs. How do you think others can also do that to effectively engage with their stakeholders so that they can have visibility, like what Augustino is saying? Since you're the one doing more of it, how do you think people can also learn from what you do?
Thank you. First of all, I think it's important for us as young people to be able to share. One challenge with us as young people is that we like to keep our initiatives to ourselves, because we think that we are the originator of the idea. So I am the one who's supposed to push it from the scratch to it becoming, I mean, a big thing. But each of us as young people have different resources that we can contribute. And so it's important for us to share our ideas to our fellow young people, to the older generation, because someone may know another person who may be interested in what you're doing. And beyond that, may be also able to guide you and give you some ideas on how you can really maximize your potential, or even with the project being able to address the real needs of the community. So for example, if you are in a community and there are a lot of coconut husks and you want to, I mean, develop a fuel from it to address as a clean cooking solution, I mean, you need to understand the cooking needs of the community. And sometimes when you try to form a team, it helps you to be able to really understand the context of the situation, or what the real needs are and where the market is, than you pushing the initiative on your own.
Great. Thank you so much, Richard. Moving to Mujida. Since what you've been doing more, it's in the areas of, communicating, climate change, creating awareness, making training and everything. How do you think youth-led projects can employ creative communication methods to effectively convey the urgency of climate action and engage people who may be new to the concept? Because I mean, basically, the areas we're looking at is climate, because climate change is a big issue right now. Many people are very new to that concept. So how do you think people who are already advocating like what you're doing in policies, in climate awareness, in education, in movements like the Youth Climate Council, like what Gaia is doing, how do you think people can continuously create communicative methods that are creative enough and innovative enough to attract people and also to bring the awareness to people who are very new to it?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think the most important issue that we face is in breaking down the complex scientific information that comes with climate change. So most of the time, for people who are already experienced in the field, you just wait for reports like the IPCC report, and then you're able to dissect it and you say, oh, this is what is happening. But to the layman out there, it doesn't mean they are not educated. It doesn't mean they don't have common sense, but because they are not in that field, we need to find ways of breaking it down in the language they understand. So the first thing is, and that's what speaks to the question, how do we make it creative? Because climate change is quite abstract. So you're telling me something is happening that I can't see their emissions. Where are they? I'm going to ask you. So we need to be able to create engaging conversations around them. The first thing I think we can do is to, like I said earlier, break this down into layman understanding. And in doing that, we also need to understand the cluster of people we are talking to. So we cannot have a one-size-fits-all interpretation or explanation for one issue that we want to communicate to people. When we are talking to policyholders, I have learned that the way you approach them is different from the way you approach young people, maybe students or people who are indigenous people. We need to be able to break this down in probably their indigenous languages and use things that make people, that kind of pique their interest and get them engaged in what you're talking about. I call it activism, and I know a lot of us are familiar with it. Activism is bringing art as a tool for activism. You know, this happens a lot of times. Entertainment will always sell any day, right? So it's okay for us to be able to convey these messages in things that are entertaining to people, creative displays, you know, at COP, or maybe you go to schools, you're able to creatively tell stories to young children about how climate change impacts them, their everyday actions that also contribute to climate change. And you have to make it relatable. So I am a Nigerian. We don't have blueberries in Nigeria. Right. So I don't go to a school, I'm not speaking to children or even adults, and then I tell them how it's affecting, I'm explaining to them how it's affecting plants, and I use blueberry as an example. They don't even know what blueberry is. So they tend to see it as, oh, okay, blueberry. Oh, so where is blueberry? I say, oh, it's in the West. Oh, I've only communicated to them that climate change is a Western issue. Right. But when we are able to say, when you do not, when you burn firewood, when you burn your refuse, you are contributing to climate change. These are their everyday realities. They relate to it more. We need to also be able to break this down into indigenous languages. I have noticed that we don't have enough of indigenous language materials when it comes to climate change communication, and that is one of the major issues that we face. So you're talking about mitigation. What is mitigation in my indigenous language, Yoruba? How do I explain to a market woman what mitigation is? How do I explain to them what adaptation is? So we need to be able to localize climate knowledge. When we have any scientific report, we should be able to break it down and also communicate it. For example, we can use music. I have a friend who was able to, heal the world. That music, it was able to adapt it to climate change. And so when we go out in the individual work, my professional work in Nigeria, we play that music for people. And because they're already used to the regular lyrics of Heal the World, Make It Better, they naturally flow with that. And we are conveying climate change information. So subconsciously, they already understand what is happening, and then they begin to ask more questions. Another thing we can do is data visualization. We can break things down in ways that, we all like PowerPoint. Aesthetics will sell any day. PowerPoint, slides, and life is easier now with all of this. So we need to be able to break that down. And then digital life is also making things easier for us if we are able to leverage it to communicate climate solutions and climate change issues. We can write things on social media. We have people using TikTok now to talk about climate change. So they just go to make innovative videos. And because they are videos, you naturally want to watch after a long day, right? Before you know it, they are passing their own message across. We have people doing skits that have to do with climate change. We have music that have to do with climate change. These are the ways we can contribute to people, especially in places where everybody is still trying to figure out their daily bread. And when you talk to them about climate change, they see it as an add-on, or what is climate change? Doesn't even affect me. I'm trying to look for school fees for my child, telling me about climate change. Do you understand? So we need to be able to tell them in ways that speak to what they need. oh, Nigeria is hard, Africa is hard, we have economic challenges. So I'm not going to be hearing you talking about climate change. But after a long day, you give me some music, I can flow with it, the tune is really amazing. Before you know it, I say, okay, so what is the lyrics of this song? And then you tell me, this is climate change, all of that. First day I may not listen, second day I may not listen, but over time, especially when I see you practice what you preach, I am going to listen. One other thing that we can do, especially when we are talking to policymakers now, because one thing I also realize is that it's not only the laymen that do not have a good understanding of climate change. Sometimes, at least at the country level, some of our policymakers do not even understand the intricacies of climate change. So I believe that we should be able to find ways also of communicating to them what this is. And we can, if we're looking at it from that perspective, we can engage people who are researchers in climate science. We bring them to explain to them these things in layman terms. We should move away from that point where academia is there, they are doing their researches, and they're just churning out all of the technical information. Another thing we can leverage is storytelling. Stories move people. Look at the video we watched about Gayu. We saw real life things that are happening here. People are able to connect to real life stories. So I think when we employ all of this, it should move us forward considerably. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're on the last round of questions, and then we allow our audience to also ask some questions for you. So to Augustino, in looking at bringing people, together through partnerships, through funding, you're looking at visibility, you mentioned some criteria. How do you measure the impact and effectiveness? So what are some best practices for measuring the impact and effectiveness of these youth climate projects? And how can we, the audience, use this information to inform future funding decisions? It may be too late to join what you already have started, but how can people have this information in mind to inform your future funding decisions so they can be a part of it? Over to you, Agostino.
I'm going to actually read you the the ones that have been added this year, because then I can elaborate on it, but I don't want to miss pieces. So. And I think it really relates to most of what has been said. And for instance, Richard, I was really listening when you said that not everything has to become an enterprise, right? So not everything has to become something that then, the objective is to find something that then you can scale and sell, right? That's not what we mean by impact or scalability, absolutely. And indeed, also we are looking at ways in which it can be more accessible. The communication of the impact, as Mujita was saying, is very important. So some critical aspects of measuring impacts that we are using now for us is to understand the community involvement and ownership in implementation and monitoring. And we are doing this also through a completely young young people made or something like that. I mean, an advisory committee that is youth-led. And so there is this element. And then on Mujita's point and visualization, right? So for us, it's very important to being able to communicate these projects that are coming. So we want really to complement data with storytelling. So something that does not only tick the box of a report, but actually is something that then can be scaled more effectively. And so this is really one of the best practices that we want to use in the measurement of impact and effectiveness. And also, and this is really something on which UNDP has a strong leadership, is the formulation on non-linear theory of change for the project, right? So this doesn't need to be simply about solving a specific issue, but really how the specific issue can have, can go through a breaking point essentially of impact. And also, we don't really want to simply present climate change as a project that we have to, a problem that we have to crack, a challenge that we have to solve, right? But also, how can we, so this is more linked, of course, to adaptation, but like how can we use these innovative projects to think ahead of a world, right, where in any case we will have to live with some aspects of climate change, certainly. And so, how those projects make that world more inhabitable, so to speak. And then we want to have, as I said, something that we want to treasure and measure also things behind numbers. So for instance, shifting of values versus the impact of climate change, right? So Mujita's example about the songs, right? So it would be very hard to sell to a banker in terms of, how many numbers have you hit, but in terms of shifting the values versus the fact that climate change is here, it influences us all, and will have an impact on, you young, but I'm still relatively young. I have a daughter who is 3 years old, right? So this is something that is here for all of us. So that we have to find innovative way of accounting for this. And if you allow me a last point, I was really, touched and convinced by, for instance, by Richard's point about young people needing to understand that it's important to share. And I would say that it's fantastic to be able to be, to have a certain level of autocriticism, but it must be said that this is not a feature of humanity that changes with age, right? So also older people are not very willing to share. And so this is why we structure this Youth4Climate platform, this Youth4Climate program in a way. So for instance, you won't see on the Youth4Climate program, a picture of Steiner for UNDP or whatever president from Italy or things like that, because we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, because we want to create a tool that then can be used, for instance, by all these organizations. And by the way, we are now in the restructuring phase of this, because, we used it very successfully to advertise for the call for solutions. So now we have 7,000 subscribers, but really we want this to shift, right? So now we want this to be an open platform for all of these examples, organizations, and so forth. So please, all of you subscribe, follow the Youth4Climate official channel, connect with the colleagues from the ministries, Emanuele and Roberta, in the first line, because they're really the engine behind this, and feel that this is your home, right, to join, and where you will access not just finance. We know finance is important, and we're working really, really hard within UNDP, with other donors, to make sure there is scalability to what we can offer. But in the platform, you will find training, opportunities, contacts, partnerships, and so forth. And so you should think about us not as a big competing institutions or something like that, right? But as a home for everyone. So that's where I will measure, now to go back to impact, where I will measure my impact, right? If this is not a big UNDP thing that then will fail in 5 years, right? But it's something that stays because everyone finds value in it. And in the end, that's the only thing that, should justify institutions leaving. Then, that's another problem in life, is that institutions tend to continue on living where they're not needed. But hopefully Youth4Climate won't be that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agostino. So last round of questions for Dada and Richard. I go to Richard. And looking at today's session, facilitating community-led initiatives through advocacy and funding, how do you think people can join GAIO's work in facilitating their community-led initiatives? How can they learn from it? What are your last words? Based on the successes of GAIO, how can people facilitate what they're doing through advocacy, as you do, and through funding as well?
Okay, I think one key thing or lesson that can be learned from what GAIO does is that GAIO is very big on sharing our success stories. We are interested in letting people know what we do, how we've supported young people, and giving those we've supported the opportunity to also tell their stories. Yes, so I think people can learn from that, which is very, very good, because when you tell your story, there are people who are also out there who are looking for some of these stories. Another thing is that GAIO likes to share, and we like to bring people on board. We don't work in silos. We always like to collaborate with other young people on every initiative that we do, whether it's from the local level to the national to the international level. We always bring partners on board. So it's important to share, because through sharing, you get to connect. Somebody would also carry your story to another place and will share and will connect you. So because a lot of the things that we do have been as a result of the fact that we've shared our work with a bunch of people. And through that, we've been able to connect with other people. One of the success stories I'll tell about sharing is with the Africa Climate Innovation Challenge. We started it in Ghana last year. It was people of Ghana, young people in Ghana. But the fact that we shared the story, we got a lot of traction and we spoke to people about it. And then we got calls from other partners that let's take this to the African level. And we received a lot of applications from over 25 African countries. And we received close to 1,000 applications from young people across. I mean, it tells you how, by virtue of sharing an initiative which originated or started in Ghana, has been able to get people from different African countries. And we had a winner from Madagascar. Our top prize winner, who is here sitting amongst us, was from Uganda. He won $10,000 US. I mean, this is how it's done. So let's share our work. Let's share what we are doing with as many people as we can. We have social media platforms where we can share some of these stories. Thank you.
All right, the last question to Dauda, and then our audience gets some minutes to ask their questions. Same question goes to you, facilitating community-led initiatives through advocacy and funding. Based on what you have been doing, what is your advice to a lot of us out here?
Well, I think it's just going to be a repetition of what they've been highlighting. And I really think one thing that I would want to share is for people to actually try to join networks, because this is really important for the work that we do. And because if you look at it, I joined Yongo in 2019 as just a general member. And then from that year, from 2019 to today on, I've been able to be a coordinator of COI in my country. I convened the LCOI last year, and this year I'll be doing it. I'm also now part of a team that is running a campaign under Yongo. So you could see how being part of these networks really help you to be able to build your career, but as well as get to benefit from some opportunities. Of course, the Youth4Climate platform, to which I am also part of, also there's so many opportunities, and we've all heard him talk about the initiative that they launched, I think this year, where they're going to be giving $20,000 to people who are going to be winning those awards. So I think these are really things that we all should be part of, so that we are able to get these benefits. But another thing that I really think is important is making use of our social media platforms. They've all highlighted it here, and I've seen an organization that has been contacted several times by donors because of the work that they do. Sometimes you share these impacts that you make on social media. You don't even have to look for funders. They look for you. So that's why he talked about visibility. So it's really important that we share what we do, so that we are able to learn from each other and be able to grow as a team, because this is really important. We are one people, one continent, so we should be able to support each other. Let us not see this as a competition. In as much as it is important for us to pursue our personal goals, but it's also important for us to collaborate. So on that note, a final request that I'm just going to make is, yesterday I was in a panel. I always say this, panels are really important, where we share ideas, we share perspectives. But for me, the most important part is what comes after the panel. We are sharing these ideas so that we can be able to find ways that young people can be able to benefit from these funds. So what do we expect after this panel? Hopefully our funders here will be able to create more opportunities for young people to be able to get access to these fundings, which is, for me, what is the most important thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give it up for them, please. All right, we're going to give the room for some questions. We'll take 4 questions. I see 1 hand, 2 hand, 3 hand, 4 hand. Oh, and the last one. Okay, so 5. All right, can we have someone with the microphone, please? So 1 person here, and then 1 person at the back, and then 3 here. So we'll start with the one on this side, and then remove this side. Is that okay? All right, thank you so much. From the other side. Yeah, there's a gentleman, yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hamza Abdi. My question is specifically to Augustine. Can you provide insights on the criteria for potential collaborations and funding opportunities? So basically the criteria to get the funding opportunities and potential collaborations. Thank you.
Yeah, so we take all the questions and then our speakers will answer. Yeah. So 2 here. No, the lady. Yes, thank you. And the gentleman behind here.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry. I work for a feminist organization. My work is around ecofeminism. I have a question for Gaio and Augustine. So for Augustine, how do we dissect the power dynamics that come with donor funding? Donor funding can spike a lot of inequalities where mostly for closed-ended funds, where a donor would say, we will fund you only to do this, but don't do this. And when you look about issues about climate change, I feel like we have to have a gender lens, we have to have a poverty lens. A poor person doesn't care about climate change. So how do we talk about, like the power dynamics? And to Gaio, I've seen from the video you do, you have a project on reusable sanitary towels. We have done that in Kibera where I work, but how do you dissect the issue of water? Because when there's no water, then we have to talk about sexual reproductive health rights for women, and it's a whole nother story. So do you also fund women to have tanks where they can, like hygiene situations that come with reusable sanitary towels?
Yes, my name is Kisai Metamei. I come from an indigenous group, and we are focusing on beekeeping. So my question is basically to all of you, and it's all about issue to do with policy. If you need to do anything, first of all, you have to put the aspect of policy into consideration. Like, for example, beekeeping is something which is so new to the Maasai community, and that is basically what I'm leading. So how does one address the issue of policy formulation and implementation, especially when it comes to what you guys were addressing, like even the leaders themselves who are supposed to be the ones driving policy formulation don't have knowledge on what needs to be done. On beekeeping, it's a livestock, but I'm sure in this room that we are in, almost 80% would not understand that a bee is livestock. And when you talk about climate change, you must have a bee inside, at the center of your topic on climate change.
In front of you, you had a question here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ibrahim Kibiwot, Secretary General of an international non-governmental organization supporting community-based organization. In my leadership, we have 57 youth-led organization. But my problem is, in as much as we are trying to decarbonize, how do we create more opportunities to grassroots-led organizations? You have very, very, very good initiatives. You have very good things you are doing about climate change. But unfortunately, if we're not careful, it's only for the few. Only in the urban centers, like people who attended this conference, the few who had the opportunity, maybe like myself or others who can be able to go through the internet, the social media and mainstream media. What happens to the rest that are in the grassroots organization and they are already working? They really want some directions, a sense of direction of what they should do in climate action. You understand how the climate jargon is. Not everybody knows, including even leaders. They cannot be able to define what is this climate change. So I'm worried about the grassroots-led organizations that are already working, but they cannot get opportunity. And as you all know, opportunity is dignity. So how do we, as we want to decarbonize, how do we de-urbanize? How do we move to grassroots communities and do the work there? Because that is the direction that you should be going for us to go green and us to really do the climate action.
1 minute. There's a guy at the back. One person was you, right? Yeah. So just the lady behind, and then this lady, and then we're done. Yes. Right.
Thank you so much. My name is Christabel. I'm a COP28 International Youth Climate Delegate, and I'm also an IEC trainer trained under the International Renewable Energy Agency. So my question is, I would like to understand from Youth4Climate and Gaio, what is the long-term sustainability and scalability considerations for youth-led climate innovations? I understand that sometimes a lot of money is injected and we have young people being supported to carry out their initiatives towards the climate, addressing the climate agenda. But then maybe at the end of the day, there's no follow-up that happens to ensure that the projects are being done, like the money that was injected is really being used for that particularly. Maybe some might actually purchase other things that do not even speak to what they would have applied for when they indicated interest in accessing the fund. Then so I want to understand the monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that you have in place for that. And then my second question is also directed to the two of you. What is your vision for funding children? I understand that we have a lot of environmental clubs across the globe where we have like young children who are also like in climate action, doing a lot of things, because we understand that children are not passive recipients, but they're also agents of change. And climate change is actually one issue that also affects children more than everyone else, and they actually get to bear the brunt of it. So I want to understand, what is your vision for engaging children in climate financing for children, innovative climate solutions? Thank you.
Thank you. So the last person, the lady in front. I'm so sorry, because of time, the lady in front. The last question, and then our speakers would address it very briefly, I hope.
Yes, very briefly. My name is Eunice. I'm a student at the University of Kent. However, I also lead. I'm part of a youth-led organization in Mombasa. It's known as Mombasa Youth Assembly. So we influence policies through parliamentary debate processes. And my question is, do we have an existing coalition for youth assemblies? And considering now that we have already passed this process, how can the youth assemblies contribute to the COP28 whatever processes? Secondly, to Agostino, the call for applications has already closed when the next process about to open. Then thirdly, can we create an action plan right now? How can we collaborate as at now, like moving forward? Thank you very much. This was very informative.
Thank you so much. So moving to our panelists, we want to go this way. Augustina, you relaxed since you had lots of questions coming your way. As much as possible, if you can use 3 minutes to answer the questions so we can prepare this place for the next session. So 3 minutes from you, from you, from you, and from you. Okay, cool.
All right, thank you very much. So with regards to the first question on the support for women with regards to our water for adaptation project, we do not support only those who are into the sanitary pad production, but we also support the communities with solar-powered boreholes which are drilled with pumps, because this water is also used for irrigation purposes for their farms. Yeah, so that is another aspect of the water for adaptation project. And then the third is also that we construct sanitary facilities for the communities. And these facilities are led by the community members themselves. So it's not like GAIO goes there and builds it for them and then we leave, but we empower them to construct it themselves. We support them to use local materials to construct these facilities. Yes, with regards to the rural folks, GAIO has the Advocacy Seed Fund Initiative, which is a project that we re-granted to grassroots organizations that are working in rural communities, and not just working there alone, but are working hand in glove with these community people. So we don't only look at those in the urban areas and peri-urban areas, but we also work with local organizations that are directly in touch or are present in local or rural areas as well. So we ensure that, there's a balance. And GAIO is a gender sensitive organization. It's a gender balanced organization. When you look at our staff, it's gender balanced. So we ensure in all our projects, in all our activities, that the gender element plays a very critical role in all that we do. And with the people that we support, we don't just provide them with seed money, we don't re-grant and leave them alone, but we also follow up on their initiatives, because not every initiative requires funding. Some really requires technical support. Some really require networks to collaborate with other people. As I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to start your initiative all by yourself. You need people to come in to support. So GAIO always ensures that people are on board who are supporting. And through our Youth Climate Council initiatives, we have presence in, so for example, in Ghana, which I coordinate the Climate Council in Ghana, we have presence in all the 16 regions of Ghana, and we make sure that whichever organization or individual we support works with the regional databases that we have, so that they all participate in the project. So through that, we are able to follow up to see how their initiatives are really bringing in people within their respective regions or localities, and are also involving other young people as well. Thank you.
Okay, Dauda, so if you want to add up to anything, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to respond to the question on, I think he asked the issue of policymakers not really understanding these climate terminologies. And I think this is something that is really important. Recently, my organization has actually built interest in this area, and then we are working on trying to work with our parliamentarians to see how best we can have capacity building programs with them to decode some of these complexities to them, because this is important for the fact that most of the times we do conferences, we make declarations, we design policies and so on. And these policies will end up in the hands of these policymakers eventually, because us as youth organizations, we cannot really implement these policies. It has to go to the central government. But now those that are supposed to put those policies into action, if they are not really understanding what we are giving them, then it becomes a problem, because at the end of the day, the work that we would have done would result to nothing. So I think that is really important. And my organization is really looking at this area. In terms of representation, my organization is structured in a way. We have what we call regional coordinators. So we have 7 regions in my country, and each of these regions, we have coordinators there, because we believe in decentralizing whatsoever that we do. And then if you look at our activities, always what we do is, once we're about to organize activities, we ensure that all of these regional coordinators also operate or implement those activities in those separate regions. So for instance, on the 16th of September, we will be observing the World Cleanup Day. Already preparations are ongoing in all the regions. All of them are doing their separate preparations, even though single organization. I think this is one way we can really involve everyone. Also, we have a WhatsApp community platform. I think this has really been a very good thing that WhatsApp has done, where we have all these separate regional groups in one community where we share opportunities, and then we also share ideas. So that is also something that we do. In terms of sustainability, I think Christabel asked the question about how do we ensure that our projects are really sustainable. I think one thing that is really key is organizations or youth groups should not only look for funding from donors, but I think another area that we really need to explore is asking them to build our capacities, because this is really important. At the end of the day, they are the same people that you are going to report to. So if they have to build their capacity, obviously you would have already had the opportunity to learn what exactly they need, what are they looking at in terms of the indicators. Then it makes your work easy, because you are able to report to them in a way that they would not be coming back to ask you of some of the things that they would have expected you to report to them. And in terms of funding for children, I'm also a UNICEF youth voice from the Sahel, and I work with children, and recently we are working on developing some projects that will directly affect children in terms of creating awareness climate education, and so on. So myself, I work with children. And yes, I will stop there and then allow my colleagues.
Jida, do you have anything to add to the question?
Yes, I'm going to be speaking to the policy aspect and the urbanization. First, like I said earlier, yes, there is an obvious gap in knowledge, climate knowledge to our policyholders, most of them. And what I think we can do is, in doing this, you need to understand your context. There cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach to this. Personally, I kind of categorize policymakers into two from the Nigerian context, and I think this is something that can at least be relatable to other African countries. So there are technocrats and there are politicians. The way I'm going to break climate knowledge down to a technocrat who is a professional, probably the Minister for Environment who has been in that space for a long time, is different from the way I'm going to talk about climate change to the president of my country. Do you understand? So you need to understand what people want. Basically, at the end of the day, everybody is looking at what is in it for me. So when I'm talking to the politicians, I talk to them integrating their own perspectives into how climate action is going to support them. Talking about, oh, if you do this, it's also going, I tell you the truth, and then I also tell you how it's going to serve you. Like, okay, as a politician, if you implement this climate policy project, it can be useful for you for your next campaigns, this particular part of the country and all of that. So they are able to key into it. At the end of the day, you will achieve what you want to achieve, and they will also achieve what they want to achieve. And that is the essence of learning. As climate advocates, we have to ensure that we are always learning, especially how to, aside climate science now, we need to understand how to interpret climate policies, and that's one of the essence of our course, which is currently on, and the details can be found on our social media pages, especially Instagram. It's at Care About Climate. Yeah. So for the urbanization, I think, okay, yeah. For the urbanization, I think that is a collective responsibility of all of us in this room. Like you said, not everybody is privileged to be here right now. And what we need to do, like what Gayo does, is also to ensure that people here, we take the message back home, and in whatever programs we are implementing, we ensure that we are implementing it from a local lens. We reach the local communities. It's not enough for us to stay in our federal capitals and say we are doing this on Instagram. Like he also said, Agostino, that they look at the local relevance of projects that they approve. So let all of us go back with the intention of going back to our communities and taking the message to them in a language that they can understand. Thank you.
Agostino, over to you. Hopefully you have 4 minutes to answer all the present questions. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Margaret. I'd like to split my 4 minutes also with Marie-Laure, if you want to come on stage because of one particular question. Sorry, Margaret. That's okay. So very, very quickly on my 2 minutes. AMSA and EUNIS, so the criteria, you can find them on the platform. They're quite detailed, but we are now preparing for the next call for solutions that will take place at COP28, right? So, and then the timeline there would be similar to this year. So end of March or something similar call. Call in November, December, and closing of the call end of March, and da. So in fact, it's not that you're late to this year's call, but that you're just early for next year's call, which is already upon us. So the question number 4 on youth-led organizations and so forth, this is crucial for the work of UNDP. So there is a whole program called Accelerator Labs that indeed its work is to scout grassroots organizations. Please find them online. I'll put you in touch. It basically flips the charts on what we described here today. So here today is all about people proposing what they're doing. This instead is UNDP funding local experts to scout for grassroots things that are already happening, right, and scaling them up. So on Christabel and some of the points that were made, so I don't think that there is a lot of money going to young people. So I'm not so worried of wasting it, because yes, it's true that we are very careful. So we say like, well, don't waste this 5,000, but we should all be very careful about the fact that a lot more money is going into other entrepreneurs, so to speak, and I don't even know how much is wasted. But we are ensuring huge level of accountability through the country offices of UNDP, more than 170 offices that will allow us to monitor. And also this response to the question about how do we make sure that this is not just the influencers getting the funding. Having these country networks allow us to really like evaluate at the local level, or so I hope. I mean, so it does, of course, we can do better. But really I left as the second question about the poverty lens. And the power structure, I think, is a powerful question, but I don't feel able to respond just because Youth for Climate is just too new. So I have been not faced yet for this question about the power structure. But our hero from the Small Grant Program has a lot more experience in this. So 2 minutes for Mary-Laure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Agostino. Thank you, Margaret. So I would like to emphasize that in any actions, in any initiative that we are supporting, be it advocacy, be it for training, or maybe alternative livelihood options within communities, we have to ensure that what we are doing is not going to keep the status quo in terms of those who are making decisions within our community. But it should be inclusive as much as possible so that those who are only the decision makers of the community can bring on board those who in the past were voiceless, but who can now act, who can have power to change things. That I'm thinking of women, I'm thinking of youth, I'm thinking of people with disabilities. But also when you are working with governments, or like my fellow from Nigeria was speaking about politicians, you have to make sure that what you are taking to them as information, as in terms of advocacy, is going to break the fact that the power is only kept by some people who are having the knowledge, and the knowledge is not going to those who are the most affected by the climate change. So we want those who are affected to be able to use the knowledge, to use what we are bringing as new skill to change. And the change can really stem from the local communities. It should not be always a top-down approach in terms of knowledge, in terms of policies and so on. We can have initiative from local communities that can help to influence the policies and change the way things are being done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause to all our panelists, please. Thank you, Mary-Laure. Thank you, Agostino. Thank you so much, Mujida. Thank you, Dowd, and thank you, Richard. We want to capture this moment, so we have a picture with our panelists and have a picture with everyone here, and then that's all we're done. Yes, so just a photo. Yeah. Okay. So everyone, so panelists, please can everyone come tonight? Just one photo to capture the moment. In 30 seconds, and we're out of here.